everybody, Blake T. Wild here, and welcome back to the Ultimate Era. Now, we are going to be jumping around in time at this point, because it is finally that moment to discuss Jonathan Hickman's Ultimates. Before we get started, this episode is brought to you by my Patreon, patreon.com/Smokey's videos, where you get early access to videos when available, as well as audio commentaries for movies and shows. All of my comics that I have self-published and created are available on there as well, and more. Check it out, link in the description, or floating on the screen, maybe, if I remember to put it here. As well as my Etsy shop, blaketwild.etsy.com, where you can purchase physical copies of all of my comics. Every purchase comes with a free head sketch for any character of your choice, and my podcasts, the Comic Shtick Podcast, where I discuss all things comic related, and I Need Some Disney, where my Disney obsessed wife and I discuss all things Disney related. Released in 2011, written by Jonathan Hickman with art by Asad Ribic and Brandon Peterson. This is The Ultimates. The World is Burning. So the book begins after the events of Death of Spider-Man, specifically after Ultimate Fallout, which I have not really discussed, except for very minorly in the Miles Morales video. That was when we witness Reed Richards, now scarred from the events of the Ultimate Doomsday trilogy, managing to escape his pocket dimension and return to Earth, and since then he's been machinating on things and building himself back up. So in the barren desert of Germany, it was totally ruined during Ultimatum, when Magneto did his thing, and it's just kind of been this way ever since. It's something you gotta accept and move past. The Maker and his Children of Tomorrow, devout followers of Reed Richards, arrive in the area that they will officially construct, the Dome. Eventually it is constructed, and a sole monolithic creation stands within the barren Deadlands. Cut to the Triskelion. Director Fury arrives back at the command center as he's brought up on all the code yellows and oranges that S.H.I.E.L.D. is currently monitoring. Asgardians from New Asgard raided a Barenbrow facility, and the EUSS superheroes have been dispatched to address the situation. There are also rumblings of unrest in the Southeast Asian Republic, or SEER for short, and Bangkok is in flames from riots, and the Chinese government have requested that S.H.I.E.L.D. stay on alert at the Chinese Triskelion that they have since built. Fury also notes that Hawkeye should be touching down soon and wants to wait for his feedback. Uruguay and Argentine fleets have amassed at the bay separating the two capitals, with S.H.I.E.L.D. being asked to step in by World Security Councils. Unfortunately, Tony Stark isn't with the S.H.I.E.L.D. team that is en route to handle the situation. Instead, he's at some event in Tokyo. Tony finishes telling a funny story about when he embarrassed Donald Trump when he's interrupted by Jarvis. Not his real name, his actual name's William, but Tony just calls him Jarvis for some seemingly off-putting emotional reasons. Jarvis tells Tony it's time to get going, and they head out to the car. Tony climbs in and begins equipping himself with a headpiece as he speaks to Fury over the phone, and Tony activates his remote access suit stationed on a S.H.I.E.L.D. carrier, and Iron Man activates and takes off through the skies with the S.H.I.E.L.D. rocket men in South America. New Asgard! It's been established the Asgardians are back. Accept it and move on. The EU heroes arrive, find the resurrected Asgardians partying and drinking stolen beer, and Thor offers the new Captain Britain, the original's younger brother, a mug, and then he pours it out. And Fury watches the footage as Thor socks Captain Britain in the jaw, and then he orders a team of giant men and reserves into action from the European Triskelion. At the S.H.I.E.L.D. blockade, warships begin firing their weapons. Tony leads the rocket men into action, and he blasts into the command deck and finds that it's totally empty. Meanwhile, Thor and the Asgardians brawl wildly with the EU heroes. Thor is rocketed 50 miles away from the new Asgardian capital and crashes within the barrens of Germany. He picks himself up as Captain Britain and Captain Italy land after him, and they all discover the Dome. At the New York Triskelion, Fury and his aide watch the body cam footage as Hawkeye calls in and argues against Fury and the US government that the leaders of SEER are dictators and they shouldn't be helping them, but Fury tells him to can it because the US received a formal request to assist, and President Bush just directly called Fury and told him to get stepping on it. Hawkeye sighs and reluctantly agrees as a new model of helicarrier prepares to deploy in Bangkok, and then an explosion ripples the facility and the feed is cut off. S.H.I.E.L.D. agents report in understand that Sears Triskelion is under complete attack, and Fury orders groups to scramble ASAP. Iron Man finally makes contact after conducting investigations and reveals to Fury the ghost ships and that the controls are protected by some kind of strange shielding. Fury orders him to open it carefully. Tony does, and finds a nuclear bomb that erupts shortly afterward, and Tony is driven into a seizure of a coma in his sports car. As the EU heroes investigate the dome, Captain Italy flies to the surface to investigate, and he's ripped inside by these pale, white-suited mech-wearing Children of Tomorrow. And as everything falls apart, S.H.I.E.L.D. loses all signals. Flashback time. Have you ever wanted to know what's up with the dome? Well, you're about to find out. It was constructed by the followers of Reed Richards, as I previously noted, and once it was completed, time within it was artificially sped up, meaning hundreds of years have passed within the dome. A member of this cult named Douglas and his wife Sarah were the first to reproduce, the first to bear witness to the child of tomorrow that they birthed. And they watched their son grow into a skilled builder, constructing self-repairing architecture. His daughter, Sarah, too, would found the school, the foundation of the ideology of the perfect mind. And from her genetics, the first child manufactured within the dome was produced. Although it was an abomination and quickly destroyed, the foundations were there. Eventually, Emma 4 is born, the third child created in the dome. Darum 6 was the last child created to be considered an individual, and after that, all of those born in the dome were given names like teacher, builder, speaker, advisor, etc., with prefixes denoting their number. 900 years into its existence, the self-aware city system declared to the Maker and the First Council that they must officially grow beyond the dome. And so, 5 minutes in real-world time after the dome was closed off, it reopens, and the first speaker casts his message that the world is now theirs. And coincidentally enough, as they opened the dome, they found Thor in the other two. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, the driver and Jarvis perform an impromptu resuscitation on Tony and get him up and running again. Tony refuses to go to a hospital and orders the car to pull over. He and Jarvis head to the trunk, where Tony suits up and roars away. In Germany, a member of the Children rips into Captain Italy's body and runs genetic tests, finding his spliced DNA, increased bone density, gene-activated anti-gravity harness, and notes how interesting it is that the human has been enhanced. Thor has had enough of these creepy, bald, cold villains and brings down the lightning. They all watch in shock as their systems reconstruct themselves and the Legion of Tomorrow unleashes yet again. Tony radios into Fury and tells him he's doing much better after being dead 5 minutes ago, and that he's currently doing Mach 4 en route to Paris. Fury tells him that Montevideo, the capital of Uruguay, has been decimated, and an estimated 300,000 people are dead. Double that from what's going to happen from all the radiation sickness, and Fury tells him that that is the least of their concerns right now, and tells Tony about the Sears situation, and the most important issue of whatever the fuck is going on in the German desert. Meanwhile, in the German desert, Thor battles against a pillaging band of Domites when he's caught by the geneticist. And inside the dome at the City AI system, the first builder speaks to City about its growth of 1 kilometer per hour. The children bring Thor into their labyrinthian laboratories, and the Maker finally appears and tells them that Thor is no man. Even after 1,000 years, Maker will always remember that gorgeous Norse face. He orders the geneticist to evolve and grow her eyes better to see a world outside of the dome. She does this and sees things no mortal eye should, such as the energy conducting itself through Thor's body, connecting through like a tether of space and time to Yggdrasil, the World Tree, and more importantly, directly to New Asgard. Maker is surprised by this and orders them to depower the gods. And the army erupts out of the dome as Thor and the other heroes are simply discarded to the side. Thor is helped to his feet as the heroes remain behind the now desolate dome. Captain Britain orders them all back to the EU SS Command Center and that they need to get in contact with S.H.I.E.L.D., but Captain France refuses and plans to stay to help Thor. So the two head off and arrive in the midst of utter brutality in New Asgard, as the children have already lain waste to most of the Golden City, and Thor is forced to watch once again as his friends, family, loved ones are all slain in this new Ragnarok. Odin demands that his son escape into the World Tree and live to fight another day so that they may once again return, and the children surround Odin and begin converting him into raw energy as Thor escapes to find his son, Modi. He steals away with him in a frenzy when Hela tries to stop him. He slams her in the face with his mallet and tells his baby mama he has no time for this shit. Then he rockets through the burning city to the base of the World Tree as he plunges Modi into the room with no doors within Yggdrasil and begs for his son's forgiveness and gives him Mjolnir and sends him away. Gee, I sure hope that doesn't come back to bite anyone in the ass in the future. Loki emerges behind Thor and tells him that the room isn't some sort of safe haven panic room like he hopes it is. Thor steps forward and asks his brother if he regrets his past, and Loki tells him he most surely does, and the two leap into the fray. The Children of Tomorrow's assault on the World Tree causes a massive eruption of energy that decimates the entire city, sending it crashing to the surface, with dead gods raining from heaven, all of their Asgardian power gone. Iron Man swoops in and catches Thor as the Children of Tomorrow continue their pogrom of the Asgardians below. And 2 days later, Tony leads Thor into a secret vault where he's been storing away all kinds of things, such as suits of power. One of them being a redesign and upgrade to Thor's original suit, which I'm not really a fan of. I'm not a big fan of like the weird gloves that go up to the elbow that makes Thor kind of look slutty. A week later, S.H.I.E.L.D. places the conditions of the world as black. S.H.I.E.L.D. investigate the Dome City, but nothing can breach it. No LiDAR, no satellites, or drones. And the EU heroes that went in haven't been heard from since. Hawkeye explains that the city has absorbed Munich and Berlin, with Warsaw and Brussels conducting an evacuation. Then the S.H.I.E.L.D. fleet approaches the city. The city begins engaging in a response to the arriving fleet, and Fury instructs the Ultimates and S.H.I.E.L.D. that there is no going home empty-handed today. Either they win or they don't. Fury orders increased speed of the fleet to head directly into the heart of the city with as much righteous anger that he can muster. The Children's fleet begins releasing attack shuttles that rocket directly into S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. returns fire as Fury's helicarrier begins going down, and they work to stabilize it, but the rockets can't breach the force fields of the Children of Tomorrow's ships. Spider-Woman and Hawkeye panic as Fury orders Iron Man and Thor to engage and put some doubt into those creepy eugenic eunuchs' hearts, but Tony is tackled into a helicarrier as individual city forces begin striking the fleet, and the command deck of Fury's craft explodes after a direct attack. Spider-Woman assaults the Knife as Monica Chang and Fury unload onto the invading forces with the help of Hawkeye. Clint tells him that did it and that their ship is officially unresponsive, and the rest of the fleet is not doing well either. Fury orders him to activate the warhead, and Fury commands the launch. A nuclear missile is delivered directly into the dome at the heart of the city, and it blasts a purifying endless light. But the energy is completely captured by the city's forces and redirected into a massive ship that destroys the entire helicarrier with utter ease. And then it takes down another. Fury orders all warheads readied, but Monica and Clint convince him that they can't fucking do it. And he's forced to order a retreat. And Hawkeye sends out the signal as Thor and Tony are still behind enemy lines, and Thor reluctantly teleports everyone away. Later, Tony and Thor overlook the setting sun. Tony tells him it would have been an even worse disaster if Thor hadn't sent them all out of there when he did. They lost 4 whole helicarriers. 2 of them are now docked indefinitely because they can't fix them, and over 9,000 S.H.I.E.L.D. agents were killed. But Thor did save the rest of the 16,000, and Tony reminds him of that. Thor tells him that there's a pack of hungry dogs that is currently devouring the world, and he's too weak to put them down. He asks Tony to promise him something, that when people speak of what happened today, they know it wasn't madness or grief, but fate that brought Thor to this point. Then he tells Tony it was an honor to be his friend for so long and bids him farewell as he teleports back to the city. He traipses through it and discovers it's empty. Within the dome, the city alerts the council that there's a potential contagion alert, and then it brings up a hologram of Thor moving around, and Maker smiles and tells them to do something about this little interloper. Thor continues trekking and comes across a massive incubation lab. He inspects one of the containers when a woman tells him to keep his hands off. She quickly announces that she has no plans to attack him, and Thor demands to know who she is and what's happening. She introduces herself as the fourth nurse and that the crib is currently undergoing in vitro mathematics. She explains that they grow the perfect children and gives him a quick history lesson on the dome and its people, then pleads him to leave before he contaminates anything and the city's forces arrive and attack. She then tells him where the center of the city is, and Thor heads off, and he eventually breaks into another lab and finds Captain Britain held to an operating table atop of a conveyor belt heading into an incinerator. Thor frees him, and Britain tells him that the suit has been disabled and all the other captains are dead. Then the Maker appears and asks for a quick moment of Thor's time, because he needs a message to be sent to Fury and the others. Maker makes a jab at destroying Asgard, and Thor explodes with rage, and an eruption ripples out of the city as Fury and Tony watch. Thor continues his reign of destruction, and Maker orders the first knife to display the future to Thor. The two brutally fight until Thor is rendered to the ground and beaten again and again. Maker stands over him and tells Thor that if he was the villain, he would have Thor killed. But he's not. He is unlike those who live in this god-forsaken world, because he has mercy, and he activates his helmet so that Thor can see his face and know who has brought about the future, and who will keep the world from falling apart. Then Reed gives him the message. The city has reached its current potential. It is finished growing, and only the children are welcomed in these lands. All that they have claimed is now theirs forever, and they will leave the rest of the world to those who hold it currently. If they accept these conditions, the city, the children of tomorrow, the Maker, will leave the world in peace. Reed begins to leave as his helmet replaces himself and stops, and tells Thor one more thing. To tell everyone that he was right all along. Then they leave Thor and Captain Britain behind. Thor begins mumbling to the spirit of his father, the spirits of those he has failed twice to protect and save, and Odin tells him that Thor is all that is left of Asgard, and he must do everything he can to make this world into what it should be, as Thor has become the veritable embodiment of Valhalla. Balder steps forth, going to his brother in his most dire time of need, just like he had done many years ago on Earth, and asks if he lacks faith or if he believes. And later that night, Thor gives Fury and the others the message. Fury asks if he truly believes the proposed agreement, and Thor tells him that he does. Fury asks if there's anything else, and then Thor reveals that it's Reed Richards, who has somehow managed to escape that pocket dimension that they left him in, and he's behind all of this. Another week has passed. Fury arrives in the White House to speak to the Chief of Staff. They meet and discuss the current situation. Chief of Staff tells Fury that it boils down to America being, for roughly the past 50 years, the dominant power on the planet, suddenly waking up last week to find, at best, their third. They need to do something, and the president wants a response. Nick Fury tells him no one has any fucking idea of what to do next, and that they've been given a chance by the children of tomorrow to catch their breath, and they need to use this time wisely. And he does note that he has some things in mind when he's led to meet President Bush. Meanwhile, at the Pentagon, Clint Barton arrives for a meeting, S.H.I.E.L.D. agents pass out briefing documents, and he begins his presentation. Clint announces that they aren't discussing intel on the city today nor tomorrow, because there is no intel. Instead, they discuss the Seer collapse and the Seer serum, which can transform normal humans into metahumans in unpredictable ways. In essence, it's a mutant drug. Hawkeye discusses the new government body of the Seer, calling itself Tian, led by two factions, led by two twin brothers. The group that calls themselves the Eternals, and the group that calls themselves the Celestials. Hawkeye notes that in his experience, they're quite the hassle to deal with. He continues that early estimates of the metahumans were around 100,000, but that has likely doubled. Then he notes that mutants are fleeing to Tian, and S.H.I.E.L.D. has personally lost 3 of their own mutant assets to the country. And a few days later, up in space, Sam Wilson the Falcon works aboard an orbital S.H.I.E.L.D. weapons platform. He's readied and prepared to launch, and performs a drop directly into the city, engaging his stealth tech, and performs recon, and proceeds further into the endless humanless civilization. And in the state of New Mexico, deep within the desert, Nick Fury's chopper lands, and he heads out into the wilderness until he comes across a small camp. Fury asks the man at the camp how the rattlesnake is cooking, and sits down. And Steve Rogers assures Fury he is not coming back to help them. But Fury tells him that America needs a symbol. And then he asks if saying please will work, and Steve pours him some coffee and tells him it won't. He tells him that he's seen the news reports, but he wants to know what's really happening. And Fury lets him know that things are falling apart, and it involves Reed Richards, and they have no solutions. Steve asks what Tony's planning, and Fury reveals that he's building something. Steve tells Nick that at the end of the day, he's just a straight-ahead kind of guy. He doesn't really know what sort of intellect he can offer in the situation such as this. Fury drinks his coffee and tells Steve that he needs what Captain America represents. And Nick tells Steve that the president is demanding action be taken, and people are going to die because of warhawks in a situation where the war is not conventional in any way. Fury asks if Steve could please just come back and speak against that kind of action. Steve tells Fury that he has too much blood on his hands, especially after what happened to Peter Parker. And he can't do it. And that Fury needs to find someone else. And Fury heads back out into the night. Meanwhile, the sun rises in England, and Jamie Braddock pours himself a drink at Braddock Manor and toasts to his older brother, Brian, the original Captain Britain. Jamie takes the drink and wishes Brian to get better soon, kisses him on the forehead, and heads out for possibly the last time. In the city, Falcon continues his expedition into the heart, noting much of the city remains empty. City alerts the Maker that it is detecting microdecibel exhalations, and Maker orders the contagion to be contained, and Sam Wilson is electrified and teleported before him. He tells Sam that he's known he's here since he dropped into the city, and if he wanted him dead, he would be dead. The Maker tells him that while the children watch over the city, Reed has been watching over the world. Sam asks how he's still alive, and he smirks and tells him that he has lacked any kind of entropy-based natural decay in his biology since the End Zone accident. He's effectively immortal, he doesn't need to eat or sleep, his organs are just like a ball that don't really do anything in his body, and he's over 1,000 years old at this point. Then Reed removes his helmet to reveal his elongated skull and the ever-working machinery that is his constantly moving, rapidly changing brain within. Reed tells Sam that Fury, the Ultimates, the X-Men, all of the so-called heroes, they only understand violence, they only understand the fist. They only understand that might makes right. But Sam doesn't, because he was a scientist first and foremost. Like Reed. Reed leads him up some self-forming stairs and explains that he's going to give Sam, and only Sam, free reign to come and go to the city as he pleases, to document, report, observe, discover the wonders of what the world can truly be, because he wants the city to be truly understood, and to convey the truth of the future to the rest of the world, what humanity can be, because they cannot catch up to what they have accomplished here, but they can take part in it. And that is the only way to ensure that mankind will manage its own extinction. As the sun rises over New York, Fury returns to the Triskelion and finds Clint in the command room. Clint Barton tells him everything has been quiet and asks how his little field trip went. Fury simply sighs and tells him that it's pretty much just as they both expected. Clint activates a screen to show off some options they have. Karen Grant, aka Jean Grey, former member of SEER, Firestar, the new Guardian, Zorn with an X and Zorn with a Z of Tian, and Fury trusts Clint's intuition and asks that he assemble a team before they kick the bucket, and then he excuses himself to try and get a few hours of sleep. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode of What Is. Let me know what you thought in the comments below of Jonathan Hickman's first foray into the world of the Ultimates. I really enjoy it. I think it's a great kickoff to the final era of the Ultimate Universe. We have Chapter 1, which is the beginning, everything leading up to Ultimatum. We have Chapter 2, which is Ultimatum, post-Ultimatum, all that, where the rebrandings happened and everything sort of takes over. So 2008 to about 2011. It's a very short little chapter. And then we have this third and final chapter, which is where things fall apart. And that is from 2011 to 2015. So a little 4-year span of time of all of these events kind of wrapping up amongst themselves, things just coalescing and culminating into what will inevitably end with this universe's destruction at the incursions during Secret Wars. And I've said a lot, just how much I love those post-Ultimatum eras and the stories and the universe and how it grows and evolves. And this is quite a good setup for what is to come in the following volumes. It's such a departure from anything that we really know or think of as the Ultimate Universe up to this point. And of course, this is the official beginning of Reed Richards' The Maker. We're reaching a point in time currently where the new Ultimate Universe is alleged to end in a couple months. And we're now witnessing right here the birth steps of a tyrannical psychopathic alter ego of the world's smartest man of Earth 1610. And of course, we know where all this goes. It's downhill. If you want to see the end results of this volume and the next, go check out my Ultimate Civil War video, because this is happening before the United We Stand, Divided We Fall event, and then the Ultimate FF video, which is after all of that too, all of Galactus's invasion and everything. Like I said, we're jumping around in time in these latter videos. Also, come on, how good is this? It's Hickman and Rybick working in tandem to tell such a compelling, wonderfully written, expertly illustrated story. It never feels overbearing or contrived, which it easily could have, with all of the moving parts that are going on. There's so much that needs to be introduced, so much that you just have to accept and move on with, like Germany being a desert. But Johnny Hickman is such a talented writer, and this is one of the most unique and thoughtfully laid out story arcs of the Ultimate Universe that has ever been seen up until this point. But this is only the first part, ladies and gentlemen. So stay tuned for next episode, where we witness The Maker versus the Ultimates. And those have been my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on my thoughts. And I will see you all next time. Bye.